my name is Leah, and today I will be doing a wrap-up of the 9 books that I completed in the month of January this year. So of the 9 books, 7 of them were novel books, and 2 of them were graphic novels, to be fair, and there was a 10th book that I started but ultimately decided not to finish because I found it very boring. I'll talk about that in a sec. But yes, I've decided, instead of doing the order that I read them in, I'm going to do least favourite to favourite as I go. Mainly because I can't remember which order I read. It's written down somewhere, but I can't actually remember what order I read them in. So we will be starting there. The one that I didn't finish was We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. I found this incredibly boring, to the point I don't actually have my physical copy anymore to hold up to you because I gave it to my best friend at the first opportunity. She might like it. I think it's more her thing. But yeah, I found the characters so incredibly boring. I did not care about the mystery of what happened when they were kids and so on and so forth. And just, I didn't really gel with the writing style. Maybe I'll watch the TV show, I think there's a TV show. But otherwise, I was just bored, and I really have nothing to say about it beyond that, because it was that boring, there was nothing to say. So, that is the one that I did not finish this month. Okay, my least favourite book that I read this month was Mayra by Nikki Gonzalez. I think it's pronounced Mayra, correct me if I'm wrong. But this is the story of a woman named Ingrid, who one day is contacted by her former best friend, Mayra, and invited to come and stay at her little cabin in the middle of the swamps of Miami. And when she gets there, there's something going on with the house, and it's a bit spooky and so forth. The reason this is my least favourite, I gave it 3 ultimately, but I went into this expecting a horror book, and though there is horror stuff happening in it, it doesn't really kick in till over halfway, and it's just so incredibly vague. It's much more like weird girl story, because the focus is very much on the relationship between these 2 friends and like their attitudes towards life, and like analysing why they behaved the way they did when they were kids and how they turned out so different and so forth. But ultimately the plot itself, if you're going into this expecting a horror story, the horror story comes in really late, and I personally found it too vague. I literally had to go on Google and Google what happened, even though I reread the ending more than once, because I was just completely in the lost on what was happening. Other people might enjoy that, but I personally am not interested in that. I can like an open-ended story, and I can like a story where I don't necessarily know what is going on, but I still need to have something to grip onto, and I didn't get that out of this. I was completely confused as to what was happening. Maybe I'd feel differently if I reread it, but as of right now, it's only a 3-star. As a short sort of joint 7th and 8th is the volume 1 and 2 of the Dracula graphic novel by Matt Wagner. Part 1 is The Impaler, Part 2 is The Brides, and both of them are literally the backstories of both these respective characters. It's a story that is very much a focus on Dracula as Vlad the Impaler, if Vlad the Impaler actually was Count Dracula. And it discusses a lot on his backstory with fighting the Ottomans, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Mehmed, I don't know, but who was Vlad the Impaler's real life nemesis, his real life rival, and how his time as a warlord trying to defeat his enemies led to him becoming Count Dracula the vampire. And the part 2 discusses his attempts to make himself a companion to join him in his immortality, and his many attempts at getting the perfect bride, and so on and so forth. I'd give both of them a 3-star. Overall, I did enjoy it. It's a lot of telling rather than showing, because the entire thing is narrated by Dracula. I want to say I like the fact that they gave him a moustache, like, because Dracula does have a moustache in the book, and you don't get that in many adaptations, but I like the fact they gave him a moustache. And again, I like the fact that they incorporated real history into it, and you get a lot of, it's quite multicultural. Well, the first one is, because you get, like, he's not the only person who's, like, seeking, like, magic, ancient magics and sorcery and stuff, and, like, you get to meet other people who are also seeking it from all around the world, and you get to see, like, their different takes of the same sort of mythos, how they view hell, the devil, and vampires, and so on and so forth, which I thought was very interesting. And I think a third volume is planned. I don't know if it's out yet or not. If it is, it's not on Libby, but I am interested in reading it if it ever does become available on Libby. So yeah. And number 6, I've gone for Molka by Monica Kim. I read this on NetGalley, so thank you NetGalley for that. This is the second book by Monica Kim. I really enjoyed The Eyes Are the Best Part, and so I went into this with very high hopes. Ultimately, it is a 3-star book. This is the story, it takes place in Korea, and Molka is basically this thing going on where people are putting up video cameras in places like public bathrooms and changing rooms and hotel rooms and so forth, in order to spy on people, specifically women, and record them during their private moments, and how very little is being done about it, apparently. Yeah. And this is the story of a woman, Daya, I think her name was pronounced, and basically she becomes the victim of this, and she has to deal with the repercussions, and it causes her to, it's a bit of a girl revenge story, because she wants revenge against the men who are responsible for her private business now being broadcast to the world now. And she has a co-worker who has sort of become obsessed with her. He has a very specific idea of who she is, and he's a bit of a Joe Goldberg type, in that he's kind of met her once and created this entire fantasy about her in his head, and he is obsessed with her and stalking her and watching her on his cameras and so forth. And it's sort of him slowly getting closer and closer to her, while she is slowly but surely succumbing to the vengeance that she is feeling, and her anger at what is happening to her, not knowing that he's doing the same thing, and so forth. Ultimately, I gave 3 stars because those are 2 storylines. I didn't really feel that though they feel like they should have connected very well, I didn't feel they connected as well as they could have. It felt like they didn't really come together until like the very, very end, and I feel like more could have been done with it. And like that Mayra, I feel like the real meat of the story didn't really kick in until halfway through. The entire first half was all set up, and it is an incredibly short book, so I felt like more could be done with it. And also, the problem with reading a book where I've previously loved the author's other work is you end up comparing, and I just didn't find the main character in this as intriguing as the character in The Eyes Are the Best Part. She didn't really start doing anything. I say she didn't really start doing anything interesting until towards the end, and I've started reading a bit more like unhinged women's stories, and she didn't end up really doing anything original. It felt like the same kind of thing that I've seen in other similar stories, girl revenge stories before, so as a result she wasn't the most interesting. So I'm glad that I got to read it on NetGalley and not spend money on a physical copy. But yes, overall I don't think it was bad, but I didn't love it, so I'm gonna go with that. So that was number 6. 5, I actually get to hold up a book. Yay! Breathe In, Bleed Out by Brian McAuley. Yeah, it's pronounced like that. I keep on calling Brian McAuley. My best friend gave me this copy for Christmas. This is a slasher. It is about Hannah, and she has recently gone through a tragedy. Her fiance died prior to the events of the book, and her friends, in an attempt to try and get her back out there into the world, invite her to this sort of wellness retreat that is run by a guru who's a very big believer in all like spirits and meditating and healing your mind with weird leaves that you inhale and boiling water and drink that may cause you having hallucinations and so forth. But she goes there with her friends in an attempt to move on and like improve her life and so forth, only they start being picked off one by one, and there is a lot of very gruesome murder scenes and so on and so forth. That said, I give it 3 stars because it was a cheesy fun time, and I would describe this as a good. I'm a fan of the slasher film genre, but I'm relatively new to slasher literature, and I would describe this as a good starting point because though it wasn't amazing, I had a fun time reading it. I did have a few nitpicky things about it, like I felt like the ultimate villain could have been a good twist if I felt like it had been set up better, and there's a lot of relying on coincidence and oh, that just so happened to work out perfectly. And there was one kill scene where I felt it didn't really make sense, mainly because the person getting killed should have noticed that the killer was there a lot sooner than they actually did. Like, he's literally there. How do you not know that? But otherwise, I had a fun time reading it. It's schlocky, gory. Characters are unlikable enough that you're kind of rooting for them to die a little bit, which is what slashers are all about at the end of the day. I don't think many people go into a slasher expecting something highbrow. I don't think it's a highbrow genre. So I say it was a fun time. And I did still enjoy my time reading it, even though it was only a 3. So that is that one. Number 4, I've gone for The Haar by David Sodergren, a book that it feels like everyone and their mother has read if you're a fan of horror. I know his books have become really, really popular, and I think this is like the most popular one. I think I've consistently seen people give this 5 stars. I gave it 4. This is the story of Muriel, who, now that I notice, shares the last name with the author of this book, which I never noticed, but she does. This is Muriel. She is an older woman living in a little Scottish village that is slowly being bought by this rich billionaire CEO type who wants to basically rip the whole place apart and build a golf course on it. And she's lived in this village her entire life, and as have her friends. She doesn't want to give it up. She had her children here. She lived with her husband here her whole life. She does not want to give it up, and she is refusing to do so. But the billionaire is sending like his squaddies to go down to intimidate her and damage her property and so forth, and all kind of nefarious things in order to try and get her out, no matter what, no matter how morally corrupt it is. And there is this thing called the Haar, which is basically like this mist that comes in from the ocean. And there is something in the Haar, something that not quite human, not quite natural and of this world. And Muriel develops a connection to it, and it becomes very determined to help her in any way, and it ends up doing some very gnarly things to people in the process. The gnarly things were grim and gross, and I loved it. They were very, very gory and disgusting, but like, if you like body horror, I would say this was good. And Muriel herself is such a fun character, and I love books that take place in England, because sometimes they make little pop culture references on things that I've seen. Like I think he references in one chapter she's watching like a pottery show featuring a guy who cries over teapots, and I was like, I watched that show. I know exactly who she's talking about in that moment. So it's fun to read that if you do live in England, and because sometimes you do get to see things in reality shows that see things mentioned that you do watch on TV. So that was fun. That being said, there was a lot of not necessarily sexual interactions, but like sexual content, but like things that were needlessly sexualized when I didn't really feel they needed to be. Like there was one scene that is sort of I literally accidentally just opened on it right now, but that's a sort of sex scene that takes place on a construction site that kind of took me out of it, because it just felt completely out of left field. It felt like just an excuse to write some sex in it, and that always takes me out of a book, admittedly. And though I enjoyed it, I didn't think it was a favourite of all time, so it is just a 4-star. It's a good 4-star. I did really enjoy it. I describe it as a low 4-star, but it was still an enjoyable time, so I don't regret reading it. Number 3, I've gone for Guillotine, or Guillotine, I think people pronounced it both ways, by Delilah S. Dawson. This one was also gifted to me at Christmas by my best friend, and I love a pink horror book. I just love a pink horror book. This is about Des, who is a young woman who desperately wants to get into the fashion industry but is struggling to do so. However, luckily for her, she has recently caught the eye of Patrick, who is the son of a woman who is basically Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. She is the woman in the fashion world, and so Des basically makes the decision to date this guy, even though she thinks he's a complete nut of pig, in order to get close to his mother. And she gets invited to come with him to his family's island for a holiday, and she goes, yes please, because it enables her to meet his mother and hopefully get close to her. However, when they get there, she discovers that these people they're not very nice rich people. They've done a lot of very bad things, and now the servants on the island have decided to take their revenge, and she has gotten caught up in the middle of it. I would 100% read the trigger warnings at the beginning of this before starting it. There's a content warning in the book, and I would read it because it goes there. Because when I say these people are evil, I mean they are evil. That this family, when I say they're not good people, they're not good people, and the servants are 100% justified in on the revenge that they want to get. So I would definitely read that first. But again, I'd say this is sort of a slasher rather more than anything else, because it is literally just non-stop gore, guts, and everything just flying everywhere, blood everywhere, and it is just completely unhinged. This is my first time reading Delilah S. Dawson, and I 100% want to read more from her. I enjoyed myself a lot reading this book, and if you like revenge stories that are gory and nice and short so you can get through them quickly, I would definitely read this one, because it is such a good time. Completely. My second favourite book of the month is The Second Death of Locke, a book that I'm about to do a very bad job of describing to you. It is by V.L. Bovalino, and it wins for the prettiest cover of all the books that I've read this month. This is the story of Gray and Keir, and they are a well and a mage respectively. Wells are basically people who hold the magic within their bodies, and they connect to a mage who has the ability to wield that magic, and that's sort of the relationship they have. Gray holds the magic in her, and Keir has to use it to like wield it, and that's how it sort of works. And in this world, the source of all magic was the island of Loch, which has since disappeared. And as a result of it disappearing, wells are not being born anymore. So that people are kind of stuck with the wells who are already existing at the time, who were already born at the time that it disappeared. And one day, a young girl is found who might potentially be the heir to Loch and might potentially have the ability to bring the island back. However, all these kingdoms on this continent are fighting each other, and they all want her because they know who has power over her has power over the island of Loch. So Gray and Keir are charged with escorting her to her safety, as a result, back to her parents and or her guardians and whatever. And they basically have to deal with a lot of threats along the way and so on and so forth. The main thing about this though is the sort of pining romance between Gray and Keir. There's a lot of yearning going on there because they deeply love each other, but their relationship is basically banned. They're not allowed to be together, so they haven't really done anything about it. So there's a lot of longing going on between them. I'm not a huge romantasy reader, but I did enjoy the romance between these two, mainly because Keir is actually a good person, unlike in a lot of other romantasy books that I've read. But I did enjoy this. All the characters felt like they had very distinct personalities. No matter who was talking, even if it didn't say who was talking, I could normally pick out exactly who it was. And it was a very thorough magic system where everything was explained and you could understand how it worked and so on and so forth. I'd give this a high 4. I don't necessarily know if it's a book that I'm physically going to buy myself, but I would recommend it if you are looking for a sort of lady night book to enjoy and want a romantasy story where the guy isn't awful. I would recommend this. I did really enjoy it. So that was my second favourite book of the month. And my number one favourite book of January was Hazelthorn by C.G. Drews, which does not surprise me at all because my favourite book of the entirety of last year was Don't Let the Forest In by the same author. Sole reason that I picked it up. Already C.G. Drews is now an instant buy author for me, and I'm so glad they're coming out with 2 whole books in 2026. This is the story of Evander. He is a teenage boy who is living on the Hazelthorn estate with his guardian, Lord Byron. I don't know if he's a lord, but his name's Byron. And he is basically confined to his rooms almost pretty much 24/7 because he is, one, extremely sickly for reasons, and also to avoid encountering Laurie, who is he the nephew or the grandson of Byron? I can't remember. But basically, Laurie, 7 years prior, tried to bury Evander alive in the gardens of Hazelthorn, and now he can never be alone with him. But at the same time, he's super obsessed with him. And if you read Don't Let the Forest In and liked the obsessive, all-consuming, I want to crawl into your rib cage so that the two of us can never be apart, obsessive love between the two boys in that, you'll like Evander and Laurie, because it is pretty much exactly the same vibe. And I've heard a lot of people criticise this, saying that like the writing and the language was too similar to Don't Let the Forest In, that it felt like reading the same book. That doesn't bother me. That's actually why I loved it, because I loved that book so much that reading this felt exactly the same way. I think overall I do still like Don't Let the Forest In more, but this is still a 5-star book for me. and I will 100% pick up anything that this author writes. So, because I just loved it so much, and like Don't Let the Forest In, this book is has illustrations in it somewhere. I'll find one. This one is illustrations of the strange plant life that grows on the property, and it's all throughout. But yes, I really love this. It's a 5-star book already, and I will gush about it happily. So that if you like Don't Let the Forest In, I would still recommend this. I did go to it so scared because so many people who loved Don't Let the Forest In on YouTube ended up rating this really low, but I just loved it so much, and I didn't see the end reveal coming, and that because I had a few theories going into it on exactly what was going on, and I did not see the ending coming. I was taken completely by surprise, and I am happy that that is the case. So 5 stars, my favourite book of January, and will definitely most likely end up on my top 10 at the end of the year. So before I go, I think I'll just give you a quick idea of what I'm interested in reading in February. I have already started 3 technically. I did actually start in January rereading Dracula, but I have not finished it yet. I'm just slowly going through it because I've hit a bit of a slump with audiobooks, so I decided to reread a book that I previously gave 5 stars, and I think exactly halfway through, and it is still a 5-star book. So hopefully I will finish that in February. I also only yesterday started the audiobook for Rivers of London by Ben Aaronovitch. Aaronovitch. I keep calling him Aaronovitch because of that skit that aired like 15 years ago. But I've started this. This is an urban fantasy basically taking place in London. A murder has occurred and it might be supernatural related. The main character in this finds out that he can talk to ghosts, and there are other magic and monsters and so on and so forth going on. I'm literally like 70 pages into it, so I don't know too much so far, but it's enjoyable so far, so I will hopefully enjoy that. Also, I have started, I think I'm about 30 pages into The Library at Hellbore by Cassandra Khaw. I've heard mixed things about this, and admittedly so far I'm not having a huge time reading it, but again, I'm only 30 pages into it, so I am going to at least try and stick it out to 100 pages before I make my final assessment of it. But those are the 2 that I have started already. Other books that I want to get to, I have the audiobook for Verity by Colleen Hoover come in. I think this is about a ghostwriter who might be being tormented by the woman whose book she's finishing for. Again, I don't know, I'm hoping to go into this blind, but this is on my 26 books I want to read in 2026, and it will be my second Colleen Hoover and my first thriller, because I previously read It Ends With Us and was surprised by how much I enjoyed it. So I will be reading this soon, hopefully. Also, my February pick from the library, I've gone for Strange Beasts by Susan J. Morris. So this is a priority read. This is basically, I think it takes place in the early 1900s, so it's not quite Victorian, and it's a world, I think it's a world where monsters are known to exist. I think people know monsters exist in this world, and I believe our 2 main characters are the daughter of Mina and Jonathan Harker from Dracula and the daughter of Moriarty from Sherlock, and I believe they have to solve a mystery together, and I believe it might be a romance between them as well. Again, I'm not entirely sure. I'd never heard of this, but I believe if it was Sid Bookworm on YouTube who put this in her top 10 books of 2025. So when I saw it in the library, I thought, what the hell? Let's give it a go. And I am on a Dracula kit right now, so the fact that one of the characters is a sort of Dracula adjacent. Plus I love Mina and Jonathan in the book, so in the Dracula book, so following one about their daughter sounds interesting to me. So I will be reading that. I am on a bit of a vampire kick, so I would like to get to The Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Canas, I think it's pronounced, and A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, which I know is a very, very popular book. So I will hopefully get to both of them. I think all I know is that Isabel Canas writes sort of horror romances. Otherwise, I don't think I really know anything about this. So, yeah, I think it takes place in Mexico. So, again, I'm probably going to go into this blind. I like going through the book blind. And I know this is about one of Dracula's brides. So, and hopefully, not a guarantee, I might end up reading this in March if I don't get to it. But I definitely want to read it before the TV adaptation comes out. But The Vampire Lestat is on my hopefuls as well. And last but not least, my ebook hold from the library just came in for Half His Age by Jennette McCurdy. I gave her memoir, I'm Glad My Mum Died, 5 stars, and I know this is her fiction debut, so I'm going to give this one a go as well. I think it's a bit my dark Vanessa-y, but other than that I don't really know much about it, and I don't want to. I'm going to go into this blind. So those are the books that I hope to read in February. And I will see you then to let you know what I think about them. So until then, bye.